Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to 10-minute, 15-minute chat with Gord. Today I have with me Kevin Slaney and my uncle Joe Dunphy. Both of them are originally from St. Lawrence, who left St. Lawrence 50 years ago. Kevin here currently lives in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, while my uncle spent most of his life in various parts of the Toronto area, and he now resides in Cambridge, Ontario. Both of them grew up in St. Lawrence. What I find amazing is the fact that, this afternoon they got together for a few hours and basically having a chat, reminiscing of growing up in St. Lawrence, talking about the soccer in St. Lawrence, and talking about the opportunity of following the Laurentians this season, and how they enjoyed being able to follow the Laurentians via the Gordcast and through the web. Anyway, Kevin, it's been a pleasure sitting back this afternoon, just listening to you chat.
Yeah, it's been just great, Gord, catching up on this afternoon with reminiscing with Joe here. It's a lot to cram into a couple of hours, 50 years of catching up, and yourself there with the Gordcast. That was really great. That really brought us back close to home and catching up on all the soccer, which is like blood, like our blood. It's there, yeah. And don't leave. Yeah.
And I know I heard you, Joe, my uncle here, more like a brother, and we all call him Joe. Actually, all the family calls him Joe because he practically grew up in our family as a brother. But I know this year I heard Joe say that, by leaving St. Lawrence, he felt the thing that brought him so close to back, not only to, say, St. Lawrence and to all of Newfoundland, was the fact of being able to follow the soccer, all the games on Gordcast this summer, Joe.
Well, I think it's the greatest thing happened for 50 years, ever since we left, because you lose touch like of people, their kids growing up and all the things that we did. And I'm sure me and Kev too, we remember down the dock pushing around ice clamper, standing on them, and old picket down in the mud, and pushed it across the dock, but everybody thought we were foolish.
No life jackets.
No life jackets. We never did nothing like that. And something. It was such a great life growing up. Was unbelievable. From that to the soccer, right? And then to recognize some of the names where we left so long, and that to see that their sons and grandsons are playing on the team, I think it's a wonderful thing.
Well, I know, I know this summer, Kevin, both Kevin and Joe were regular there, viewing in on the Gordcast and having the opportunity to follow the Laurentians. And both of them after dinner too were talking about, like one time growing up in St. Lawrence, it's all that would play with on the St. Lawrence Laurentians, how time have changed. And that, players are in from various countries playing with the Laurentians, and players from parts of the Burin Peninsula. And I think, they realize times have changed, the demographics of Newfoundland and Labrador, and even the out-migration of rural Newfoundland. They said it's here and it's here to stay. And I know yourself, Kevin, I had the pleasure, Kevin, of meeting you in 2015 for the first time. You were standing in front of the recreation center in St. Lawrence, and I don't know why I just met you, but anyway, you just introduced yourself. I did know there was a Kevin Slaney home, and actually we have I believe there's a couple of Kevin Slaneys here in St. Lawrence. So you just tell us which Slaneys you are connected to, Kevin, for the people that don't know you personally.
Well, I grew up back there born in the 40s and the 50s and left in the mid-60s. My mother was Ellie Slaney, as most of the people knew her back then, and she had a store right by the ramp down there, the Flores Bar ramp. And we all left in the 60s, including Mother. My father passed away when I was a very young kid. And probably a lot of the people now today don't know who we are as such, but yeah, we grew up there and I went to school, and I went to the College of the North Atlantic, as it's called today, and after I graduated there, I moved to the Ontario, Toronto area, and advanced into my trade, and that's...
And your skill trade is?
A machinist.
So,
Yeah.
and you
But
did
I,
the millwright at what was the old vocational school?
That's correct, yeah.
Which is currently the College of the North Atlantic. So you went from there to Ontario, and from Ontario to British Columbia?
I moved to British Columbia in '94.
94.
Yeah, it's a beautiful move I made, and just love it out west. And I still remember my instructor at the college there where you also went, Mr. Ford, his name was, a fine gentleman. He taught us a lot about life, and not only the trade, which was just one great opportunity. Mr. Theo Etchegary was actually the principal at the school the year. I went to that school the very first year it opened. And when I was home in 15, it was actually the 50th anniversary of it. And I went there, and they gave me a warm welcome, a very warm welcome. Took pictures, and it was in their book as well. But I don't know if they followed up on that. But anyway, it was a great story, and I enjoyed it very much. And getting back to you, Gord, yes, my roots go back very deep with the Dunphy family, and I knew your dad well as your grandfather and so on. And it was just great meeting you.
And Joe, obviously, you and Kevin, like, you grew up as kids, I guess. Both of you are roughly the same age here. And so, when you grew up, like, Joe, you mentioned about the fact of the reconnect of playing the soccer. So, did both of you just give us a little bit of brief history of your involvement with the soccer back then, and now, like, you know, wanting to get engaged with it again? And it's unbelievable to me just how I feel the people from St. Lawrence in particular, and the Burin Peninsula, as well as all Newfoundland and Labrador, are joining in to follow this soccer. And they're here to see two friends here from that grew up. That would be probably, you grew up in the 50s in St. Lawrence, folks? Yeah, grew up in the 50s, and you left, when would you have left, Joe?
64.
64, so that's a long time, and still have this certainly bond with the Laurentians is unbelievable to me. What do you think that does it?
I don't know. It's just something about the blue and white. I guess that's what seems to click in the most. As we got older, that was your goal. We played in the meadow right on side of Kev's house there, up where the Loaders all lived there, Loaders. And I tell you right now, it wasn't a bit of grass on the meadow. We had a bit right up, and we were always getting in trouble. Wherever we played, there was no grass to be found. And anyway, so we just went on and went from there, and then we went to the school teams, and then I remember I used to be the captain of St. Dominic's, the school team, and then we went to play on the junior team, and that was our ticket into town to get a bus ride down to Bearstown and to be able to go to Bjorn, up the lawn and over to Grand Bank and Fortune. That was our goal. You know, and we did these things, but then there comes time where you got to get a job, and there was no jobs to get. We were young, we were youngsters. So I started off actually trapping for, I think it was 2 months with Isaac Loader. And anyways, like, after I did, trapping wasn't for me. So I ended up, of course, taking the road and trying to get out of there. So anyway, so I ended up between Montreal and all the French. I couldn't speak very much French, so I ended up in Toronto. To give that a go. If things didn't work, I was going to go back home again. And anyways, here we are 50 years later, and we're still here. We used to throw rocks at the cacks and everything. We never forgot it. And sometimes a lump of coal when Aubrey Farrell had the vessel in there. Anyway, so the Gord cast has really brought us something that I think is unbelievable. And all the people all over, you know, that can see that all over the world, Newfoundlanders, you know, that know about Newfoundland. They can relate to that, you know, and I just think it's wonderful. People sick in the hospital can't get out to the game. Now they can see that. You bring it right into their bedside. I think it's all great. And so I think the Gordcast is wonderful.
I see there, Ben Stacy's got a few comments on there. Ben, I thank you, Ben, for your comments there. Ben Stacy comes from, just letting my uncle know, as well as Kevin there. Ben knows or our family up in Lamoline, Joe, rather well. He said absolutely agree to the impact of Gorecast, and just he goes on to say about hearing your guest speakers, and the guest speakers is every bit as important as what the game is itself, because I think this here is reaching out to the not only the coaches and the players that accept it, but it's also reaching out to the fans, and in a lot of cases are like two people here now that did leave Newfoundland 50 years ago, and this has given them a reconnect. You know, I'll get to probably I'll go to back to Kevin. And Kevin, if there was one thing that you could see this season, while you watched the games in the 70s, I'd say 60s and 70s prior to leaving, and looking at the game of today, I know both of them spoke earlier tonight about the first time the Laurentians went to Ontario to participate in that was in national competition in 1967, and I know they spoke about the Laurentians playing the Bellamina Club, and you look at how the game has evolved from then to what you witnessed this year, Kevin. And Kevin was home a few years ago, and my Uncle Joe has followed it regularly, and when he was home during the years, being back and traveling back and forth, and how you see the game evolve. What would you think is the biggest difference today compared to back in the 60s and 70s, Kevin?
The biggest change, Gordon, and probably it's an improvement as the years go by, is the formation of the soccer itself. I mean, it's changed tremendously. It's much like the hockey. I mean, the hockey has changed. We're more or less into the Russian style, and I find that the soccer has gone to the European style very much. And in a way, I think it's better. But relating back to '67, I remember going to that game, the Nationals, back in what was the park it was called in Belmont?
No. It was the Bellamina Club. Can you remember the park, Joe?
I think it was Birchmount Park.
Birchmount Park.
Birchmount Park.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. And I remember a lot of the guys were there. Norm was there. Frank Tobin, Cyril Quirk, Reg Farrell. A lot of those guys were at that game, and I was only a couple of years removed, let's say, at that time, and it was very catching up on the information from just a couple of years was just great. And now with this Gorecast, it's brought everything back to perspective again. And again with Facebook and meeting friends and people on Facebook, that brings us all close again. So with the Gorecast, that's great, as I'm saying. I love it, and I'm hoping that you're going to continue this and keep us up to speed with what's happening.
We got one of the guys there come on there, Ben there from lives in Grand Bank, currently living in Grand Bank, but from Point May. And, he said, looks like both of those guys can still play. Well, actually, Kevin looks after a golf course there now in his retirement. But they were talking about earlier, but I don't think, Ben, you can look at them to be playing. But I appreciate the fact that they join in. They have and such positive remarks. Joe, yourself, you've watched. You've been in Yvonne, Ontario, and you've been in Etobicoke, and you've been in at national tournaments in St. John's, where Newfoundland representatives have played. What do you feel the big difference from then is from back in the 60s to 70s until now? Okay, I'll get that before I'll ask you one more question.
I think the biggest difference is we didn't have Gorecasts. I think that's the big difference. We're here today in Alberta, in Grand Prairie, Alberta, And here we are, built to be here and be interviewed, so far away from home. I think that's wonderful. And, on the other hand, like I said, I thought the soccer, it really came down to ground ball, where they played the ball more on the ground and stuff like that. But the toughness, I don't think there's tough as days we used to be. Because we used to have to leave Grand Bank and go to Fortune to dress. We weren't allowed to dress in Grand Bank. They threw cans and sticks and everything else at us, But, something we used to pull through and go through. But there's, like I said, like the soccer, but the fans are the greatest in St. Lawrence. I think that's the most important thing.
But
is
Joe,
the fans.
I think, though, I don't think that the fans of today, the younger ones that are below the age of, we'll say, definitely below 40 and maybe up to even, say, 45. I don't think they had the same appreciation for the games that St. Lawrence would play Grand Bank that went on back in the, say, 60s and 70s, hey, Joe?
Yeah. Well, what I think about that and everything, you got iPad, you got all the Xbox and all the garbage that's mixed up today, I think these are the things I think that have changed, like fans. You know what I mean? The younger fans growing up and everything. I mean, let's face the facts. We used to grab the gun. You had to go out and get a couple of partridges before it got dark, and which only an hour and a half, And they don't have to do that today, and I think that's where the difference is. But something? We still have very, very, people that's in charge of the game and everything, and who still puts a lot into it.
And, I know I don't know if you're going there with it, and I'll lure you on, because I sit back and listen to them earlier today chatting, because a lot of times when I hear someone that are 10 years my senior, I sit back and I just want to capture what they feel were the difference in now and the past. And you mentioned, the coaching from the past, and they were all hard-nosed coaches.
They were hard-nosed. Oh, yeah, definitely they were hard-nosed. Sometimes the fish would come through the door before the coach came in. And I don't know if you can do that anymore. I don't think so. You know what I mean? So, no. Because everything has changed so much, But the coaching is more up on the game, though, itself. It's smarter, more educated stuff to the game.
Well, I think back in before, and for the younger ones here tonight, or anyone younger that's following, one time the formation that Kevin alluded to was 5-3-2. That was two fullbacks, 3 in midfield, and 5 forwards. And now we're virtually gone with four on the back line, 4 in midfield, and 2 up front, or 4 on the back line, 3 in the middle, and 3 up front. So the formation, but also, folks, let's not forget the size of the field is much bigger today than it was back in say the 60s and the 70s. So you got to look at, and with the size comes the physical fitness part of the game, so that has changed to the level of fitness. But I do agree with Joe there that the players were much more physical. There was much more physical presence. But the other fact of the matter is too, prior to 60s and 70s, I don't think that you would have had any these yellow cards, and it was either if you got fighting, if you threw the fisticuff, you were gone. Other than that, it was no yellow and red cards,
And something else too I want to say too, like we played in the meadows all the time. We were out there like 7 days a week playing in the meadow. Whenever it wasn't rain, and sometimes during the rain, and snow was gone. And by the time we came to the field, we could handle a ball pretty good. It was up to the coach then to put us in position, show us how to play our positions. Because that's the difference today. Now today it's only during practice. Yeah. No, I go home, I don't see nobody out with the ball no more.
No, there is a difference right now, and I think that is with all the sports that, the families, I think the families now have, in a lot of cases, have 2 people working. So the young kids, in order for them to be brought back and forth to the venues of their sport, there's a lot of more parent involvement, whereas when we grew up, it was 8 of us. There was no way with mom and dad going. Bringing us to the field. Was pretty well get out of the house and come back supper time and after supper you'd be back in for your books, sir. Shane is saying Uncle Joe is looking younger every day. So Shane, you're in his good books, and I'm with me, Shane. That's also, I don't know if you joined in late there. That's Kevin Slaney, Shane. He looks pretty good himself there. Both of them are the same age, so I won't go into what age, but you should know. You should know, you know. But we're having a little soccer talk and listen to the boys talking about reminiscing and growing up in St. Lawrence. If there was one thing, Kevin, one thing that you could remember about your childhood days in St. Lawrence, Kevin, what would be the one thing you want to share with the audience?
Well, I'll keep it on to the soccer end of it.
Okay.
Gord, as a kid, and Joe alluded to it, first thing in the morning you go out in the field and play soccer and whatever. I remember going out there as a kid and, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old or whatever, and it'd be a rainy, soggy day, and I think I came out of all that without getting a concussion from a soccer ball. Trying to head that soggy ball wasn't a great feeling.
To be honest with you, Kevin, I don't know if I really think we had those concussions, but it was just that we just played through it, eh?
Probably that's what happened to me, Gord. No, it was just a great childhood growing up, and as I say, soccer was in the blood. And as I said earlier in our conversation today, there's a lot of credit goes to the coaches. I remember, people like Howard Lake, Lons Walsh, and now even yourself that took over after I left. You don't get enough credit, you guys, how much time you give up away from your family and home and what have you for the betterment of the younger generation and the kids playing the game.
There's another comment coming in there from Ben Stacy. No, Ben, I think the success of Gordcast is not only what we're showing the people on the field, players and coaches and the fans, is also, I think, the comments that come from the viewers. So I certainly appreciate any comments. Ben says here, don't mean to make too many comments, but I bet you can remember telling the people on the roads. It's kind of moved on from me there now. Yeah, it's gone there. It was basically about the people playing the soccer and the sports on the roads. That was part and parcel too. If we didn't have enough to go in the meadow, which we all had meadows. And it was, you played on the meadows, and if you didn't have enough to play on the meadows or you didn't have enough time, you practically played on the road. And yourself, Joe, and you're growing up in St. Lawrence, and you stick to soccer. If it was one thing that you could share with people about one aspect of soccer that you can recall that you'll never forget as a boy growing up in St. Lawrence, what would it be?
I was up in the meadow a lot because my mom died when I was 2, so there was nobody at home, and I spent 95% of my time up in the meadow. And I'm going to tell you, I'll never forget the old ladder balls we had with the lace in it. And we were so used to playing that when we jumped up to hit a ball in the net between 2 pickets or 2 rocks, we waited for the knot on the lace to turn over before we hit the ball. And I'll never forget that, because if you hit that knot on your forehead, oh boy, did that ever hurt.
Yeah, that's why when Kevin mentioned concussion, I just think that, listen, that only come into be later on because of the technology of medicine.
Yes.
Yeah, Jocelyn, reading your comments there, great conversation. Jocelyn is saying that's my wife there, folks. So she's joining in there. So
hello, Jocelyn.
Jocelyn says hello there or Kevin says hello, Jocelyn.
Hello, Jocelyn, my old favorite. Hello, Jocelyn.
So I think our injuries were the fact that you didn't go to the hospital because you went home. You wouldn't tell no one that you were, so much as you would do. It was every so often your parents would drive you in to get washed up a bit and do a few books. We were always made to do our books, but or at least go to the room,
Yeah.
Anyway, Betty Loader here saying hi, Gord, my next door neighbor, Kevin and Joe Dunphy. Yeah, actually, they brought up the Loader family here today, and they were talking about, they had a good conversation about your brother, Ted. And we mentioned about Bud there, especially the passing. They were talking about the passing, and Joe was quite familiar with the passing of Ted back in on Ontario, and Kevin.
2 or 3 days before that happened.
Yeah, so like Joe was with Ted.
2 or 3 days.
Yeah,
before
2 or
that
3
happened.
days, and they were talking about, and Joe knew more about it than probably you people do, but you probably know now. So anyway, they knew more. Well, both of them grew up down the dock there, and when you grew up down the dock, I know this story on Mick Dock. He said, the further down the dock, he said, you live, the tougher you are. And he said, I live in the last house. So I know I didn't forget that. And he said, yeah, I know that.
I used to play with the dock rookies.
Mary Quirkus there saying hi to Joe there. That's a cousin of ours there,
Yeah,
Kevin.
Mary, yeah. Hi, Mary.
And Lisa Loader is watching it on there, and Greg Reed there is the all-star defender with St. John's Feelings watching on. Kathy Holland is watching on. Just had decided to do this after. Well, this was nothing more but impromptu. Just happened. I sat back and listened to the folks there this afternoon. There, Kevin Slaney again here, grew up in St. Lawrence, left St. Lawrence 50 years ago, and now currently resides in Tumbler Bridge, British Columbia. And my Uncle Joe, who left St. Lawrence 50 years ago and currently resides in Cambridge, Ontario. So again, it was just a little soccer chat, and again, I'll let him.
Great get together, buddy.
Yeah, I'll let him. Ben's got to ask. What's that in their opinion? Who? Okay, I'll ask him that. Julie Loader's on. God love you, Julie. I'm not getting away from you at all. Len Slaney is on. Okay. Okay, I got to ask one question, folks, because it's getting out of hand here now. It's getting a little bit out of control here because the fans are coming in. One question for each one of them. From your involvement and your following of the St. Lawrence Laurentians, now I know, okay, maybe like you say, I heard Joe speak about some of that. Give who you would feel if you had to rate your top Laurentian, St. Lawrence Laurentian of all time. Joe, who would it be?
I say I would predict. I say Wills Malloy.
Wills Malloy. Okay, and how about? Can you remember, like, say back in say the days before Wills Malloy? Like,
I say Reg Farrell. I like Reg Farrell.
Okay. Okay, go no. Kevin, yourself. Kevin,
Yeah, I hate to disagree with Joe. I grew up, went to school at Wills, and he was nothing but the best. He's the Gretzky of hockey, of soccer. And my all-time favorite, and I hope Lisa's listening.
Lisa?
It's your dad. I can't forget Herb Slaney. Yeah. He was a great
okay.
He was one awesome soccer player.
Herb was fantastic with the ball.
He was.
He was really.
He could make it sing.
Yeah, he could. Yeah.
Okay, so we got Kevin has said Herb Slaney.
Yeah, Herb.
That tells you of his age, folks.
Well, I had to go with a Slaney.
Julie, you're saying that Joe looks good. You better say Kevin looks good too. You know.
Yeah, cuz you better say it.
Okay,
No
because
Christmas card this year.
Well, Herb was a fantastic soccer player.
yeah, Eric Pike says Eric Pike is the son of Kevin Pike. Currently resides in, I believe, in the territories. He said I had to agree with Ben. It's nice to hear old and new side of things. Really enjoyed watching Gordcast. Thank you so much, Eric, and I was well aware of that all year. And like, I will grow this too, and like grow it to just to improve the sport and to make everyone involved. You know, it's the coaches, it's the players, but ultimately there wouldn't be too many coaches or players if they had nobody to watch them. And now we have further expanded this. And I thank the Newfoundland Soccer Association in allowing the new technology of today, as well as the Canadian Soccer Association. And like you say, Gordcast probably has made it more personalized, which I feel is good. It's not something that's all about me. It's about my age, knowing what's important for the fans of soccer to involve, as well as the players and the coaches. And I'll go with your final thoughts, your final few words for today, Kevin Slaney.
It's great being a Laurentian fan, and I'm just as big a Laurentian fan today as I was probably back 55, 60 years ago, and I just love it, Gord, and I thank you for that. And
I thank you not only for watching Gordcast, that's only one thing, but being for the gentleman that I find you, and the bonds that you have connected from St. Lawrence from your childhood years onto your senior years, I should say here now.
Mature years.
Mature. Oh yeah, the further west you go, it becomes mature. Well, back in Newfoundland, it's senior years. It's mature out in British Columbia. Anyway, Joe, your final words for today.
Oh, I am just, so happy to be a Laurentian and born one, die one, and that's my thing with being from from St. Lawrence, eh? And I'm sure Kevin and all the friends I had in St. Lawrence, God bless you all,
Okay,
it's been a pleasure.
Shane wants an encore here. Shane says, lots of time. Keep the conversation going. And I'm going to be like the guys when we used to go to the bar with Mom and Dad. We beat the tables down because the band couldn't leave. So I'm going to give it another few minutes here. So this is a sort of a little encore here today, folks. And I know you'll all enjoy it. What is this? I'm not even sure the day of the week. I was math this morning, so it's got to be a Sunday. So Jocelyn probably going to find out lots of time watching and enjoying this. Jocelyn says she got lots of time watching and enjoying me, or seeing this. Well, Jocelyn this year had to watch Scorecast to see me as well.
There you go.
So at least Jocelyn, we got Jim Loaders on there. Jim, we got your old buddy there. Actually, Jim, he told a little story about